What do you call a sad fish? A frounder. What's going on, YouTube? It is the weekend, so we're inside the Hollow City, inside of Cold Harbor, right over here outside of our plane of existence to go over our first of two weekend vendors. Restart off with some Dark Elf items. Now, no comment. A whole lot of items here. This Necron urn, I think might be a little bit of a newer item. These are definitely unique. Now, altar items and religious items generally do very well. However, I would be a little concerned about these, especially these urns. Yeah, everybody wants to have an urn, but a lot of these, there's already motifs and things that look like these already. So you can easily get a Praxis that will give you something that looks just like this. I will say the best item here is probably this for 35,000. If I had to buy an item here, readable, podium, neat little lore pieces, 35k, legendary item, not too bad, but overall, this is definitely not as good as our usual furnishing vendors. So if you wanted to buy anything for yourself, obviously it's going to be a little bit up to you, whether or not you really need some kneelers for your prayer areas. But overall, for resale value, it's probably just this item, I would say. These other ones are just not doing it for me. And as we jump into the second vendor here, which is inside of our Cyrodiilic Gate, just as a quick reminder to like and subscribe on this video. It always helps the support for the channel, so thank you guys again. I'll see what the actual golden vendor has in store for us. You're not gonna lie, the first one kind of hurts. It's Necropotence. Necropotence used to be my favorite set in the game. You can see you just get a ridiculous amount of magicka, 3,132. That's higher than Crafty Alfiq's 2,550. This is an overland set. It comes from Rivenspire. The problem is that for better or for worse, the developers have realized that having thousands of flying Twilight Matriarchs in both Cyrodiil and the overworld is suboptimal. So now you get a magicka bonus by not having pets active, meaning that unfortunately Necropotence went from being one of the creme de la creme sets for sorcerers all the way down to just a good set. I'll give it a 7.0, maybe even a 7.5, somewhere in there, because there is still a good set in there. You get tons of magicka. You can still build all sorts of scummy pet builds, with all sorts of Daedroths and Atronauts and Matriarchs and Clanfears or Scamps or whatever. There's still a set. There's still a good set in there, but this used to be something special. Now it's just something good. And for those of you who are confused, this is what I'm referring to. Next up is another overland set, this time from Gratwood. It gives you stam, crit chance, max stam, stam recovery, reduce the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 50%. Now, generally, if you're going to have a 5-piece set bonus that's only effective when something is done to you, you want it to be really good. What does that mean? Well, Necropotence, you always just have the magicka when you have a pet active, so you control when you have that. You don't control when you're being snared. Now, a 50% reduction is neat, but it doesn't really pair with everything else. And generally, PvP is all about bursting people down. And this is not a set that's going to be able to help you for PvP, and it's not going to see really any PvE utilization, unfortunately. But it's unique in its effect, I guess. Next up, from Darkshade Caverns 1 and 2, you have the Truth set. Now, the truth is that this is actually pretty good, but let's talk about it. You get crit chance, max stam, weapon and spell. When you deal damage to an enemy who is off balance, your weapon and spell damage are increased by 460 for 10 seconds. So this could be used pretty often. 460 weapon and spell damage is a lot, considering it's unnamed. So all those things are good. It's 2, 3, and 4 are decently effective. This one, I think, suffers from the okay, but this is better problem, where it's like, okay, this is good, but this is better. This is where a set like the Truth set, unfortunately, kind of falls. I would even go so far as to say this is almost a great set, so we'll give it like a 7.9. It's right on the cusp of being great. The problem is that everything that you would put in great, fantastic, or staple of PvP just does it a little bit better with either a better 2, 3, and 4, an easier requirement, such as not having to put people off balance. And that's where I think this one kind of falls in. It's still, mind you, almost a great set, a highly good set, goodly good set, but it doesn't get to that cusp, especially because off balance is something that very few classes can easily consistently do. However, spell power cure One of the best sets in the game, a staple for healing. When you overheal yourself or an ally, you give that target major courage for 5 seconds, which increases their weapon and spell damage by 430. Boom, there you go. See, we got a staple set in store for us, Spell Power Cure. Is it worth to buy this with gold? White Gold Tower, I would say, is somewhat decently farmed just because of the popularity, ironically, of Spell Power Cure. Some people will use fragments to go into the key vault and just try to get it that way. Should you buy it as a necklace? Probably not, unless you have tons of AP and you're like, maybe I want to future down the road just have a really good start to a support set. Then fantastic. Here you go, because this is a fantastic support set. So overall, it's a staple set of healing, it's a staple set of support, and it's 10 out of 10. Next up, from Shipwright's Regret, we have Nazare. Now, it's 1 piece of health, 2 piece. When you use an ultimate ability, the closest 6 enemies within 12 meters have all major and minor debuffs applied to them, extended by 1 second per 20 ultimate spent. This effect can occur once every 30 seconds per target. So this is pretty good for support. I mean, it's not pretty good. It's exceptionally good. It's fantastic even. Is this a staple? I lean towards saying that it is. It comes from Shipwright's Regret, which is a very annoying dungeon to farm. And if you're like, Jake, I want to kind of get into some support roles and queue for those as dungeons, and I've got, a decent chunk of either AP or gold, I think this is a decent purchase. It's great still on tanks. I think even other times too, support classes will run this to just extend debuffs, because sometimes, the healer or the tank, depending on what you're doing, can run the support sets. Just depends on if it's trial, a dungeon, what exactly you're running. And this is definitely one where you can extend a lot of really good effects on your enemies. So overall, great. I'm even going to say that this is probably a staple of support. So we'll give this our marquee 10 out of 10 with our Spell Power Cure. And finally, from Stone Garden, Rehab, 634 crit chance, and your heavy attacks tether you to an enemy for 5 seconds, as long as you remain within 10 meters of them. Enemies touching the tether take 759 physical damage every 1 second, and you gain a stack of Husk Drain, up to 15 stacks. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds and scales off your weapon and spell damage, but then when the tether ends, you consume the stacks and you gain weapon and spell damage per stack for 5 seconds. So that's a lot of words. Too bad I ain't gonna read them. No, I did read them. But is this a good set? Some of you might be thinking to yourself, heavy attacking, that's pretty popular for solo content, pretty popular for some support stuff. Jake, is this any good? Well, it suffers again from the problem of there's a lot of better alternatives that just don't require you to do as finicky things that this requires. So I think in a perfect world, you would just use Battle Orcs, honestly, if you're trying to just get a bunch of weapon and spell damage. Realistically, if you're just trying to do oogles amounts of damage with a monster set, just use Zons. So to me, Stone Husk doesn't meet the cut for being a set that you really need. So I do think it does have some greatness to it, but it's probably more towards the good tier versus the great tier, even though its greatness is just overscaled by all the sets that if you were making a mental tier list would go there. So we're going to have to give this let's give 7.25, right in the good tier. Unfortunately, a quarter of the way to great, but not fully to greatness. But everyone, thank you guys so much again for watching. I do also want to confirm something from the developers, is that the test that will be live on the servers for Cyrodiil that will hopefully bring us back to like 1,800 person Cyrodiil plus campaigns, that is going to be no way reflected of the final product. Them not having sets inside of there and having very specific abilities is no way a reflection of the final product. So don't panic. We're not all just gonna, it's not going to become a hero shooter. It's purely experimental and testing in a beta, and there will also be a Q&A PvP thing, as well as a survey to give feedback on it, as well as to things that you thought went well or to give additional feedback on it. So thank you guys again for watching. As always, we're doing our 3 giveaway drawings. I do also want to ask for your permission to change one of them going forward. So I've never been able to track likes on a video, but YouTube will actually recommend to me community members at the end of the month, usually between somewhere like 5 and 10, who have left a lot of likes on a video and comments. So I just want your permission to just switch it to just highlighting one of those people. But because we're halfway through the month, we'll start that next month, as long as you're okay with it. But to enter, just leave a comments below. Second thing is just make sure you're subscribed. And the third thing is look for a hidden word be flashed upon the screen. If you're the first person to find and comment that word, you will win. Thank you guys for all the polls in the community tab. I will also make sure that the community tab winners are posted because I'd been having so many polls that I wanted to get good feedback on. I've been trying to space out my community tab posts. So thank you for bearing with me, and I'll catch you later. Bye, guys.
You better remember to like and subscribe to Jakeclips. Or you should. I might have to pluck your eyes if you don't. Or, better yet, I'll skip rope with your entrails. Do it now. Subscribe. Ta-ta. Off with you.